Do you have hair that grows away from your locks? Do you even know what having hair that grows away from your locks is? Well, if you don't, you should. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the Atreyu Locs channel. Hi, I'm Atreyu, a semi-freeformer who is dedicated to bringing you guys the best tips to grow a healthy set of locks. If this is your first time, make yourself comfortable. I am glad to have you. So if you already know about having hair that grows away from your locks, this video is sadly not for you, but you can check out last week's video that was talking about some interesting stuff, such as the absolute worst type of buildup that not even an ACV rinse will help. Yeah, so check out that video if you already know about this topic. So I'm making yet another video about hair that grows away from your locks because there are just too many of you still in the lock community who are unaware of this phenomenon. Not to mention there are a lot of newbies, right, starting their lock journeys. And of course you guys don't know what it is, right? Why would you? So I'm going to continue making videos about hair that grows away from your locks, just in case you actually have that type of hair, because here's the thing, this is why it's so important. If you have hair that grows away from your locks, you might actually be thinking that you're doing everything right, when in actuality you are missing one important fact that can make or break your lock journey. And what is that fact? Well, it's the fact that you have hair that grows away from your locks. I'll show you, what does that mean? I have hair that grows away from my locks. What that basically means is that your new growth, as it's growing out of your scalp, it does not grow into the lock, okay? I've made several videos about why I think this is the case, why this happens to some people and not others. You can check out that playlist if you want to try to understand more about why it happens, but really that's not even necessary. What you need to do is figure out whether or not you have hair that grows away from your locks. And here's one way to tell. If you get a fresh retwist or interlock done, or just fresh maintenance done, and then very shortly thereafter you notice you have a fro at your scalp, then you might have hair that grows away from your locks. Something else that might be trying to signal to you that you have hair that grows away from your locks is if you are enjoying this video, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you are notified every single time I upload. How about that? You have not been doing any maintenance, but your locks are starting to thin out. Why would your locks thin out if you're not doing any maintenance? That just doesn't make sense, because isn't it when you do too much maintenance, too much pulling and getting tight styles, that's when your locks thin out? Yes, that's true, but that's not the only cause of thinning locks. So let's address these two separately. The case where you're getting too much maintenance done and it's getting done too tightly is the case where, yes, your locks are thinning out, but your locks are thinning out because there are no or fewer hairs at your scalp. So there's no hair to pull from to create or to continue to maintain that lock. And so with time, there are fewer and fewer strands that are there that become part of the lock. So that's the first reason why your locks are thinning out. And that has nothing to do with having hair that grows away from your locks. Now to the meat. What happens when you have hair that grows away from your locks? Why would your locks thin out in that case? I mean, you're not doing anything to your hair. Well, as I said, some people have hair that grows away from your locks, which means that new growth, as it's coming up out of your scalp, right? It's growing away from the lock. Imagine my head is the lock, right? And as those hairs are coming up, instead of staying into the lock and getting matted up, what they do is they do this, right? If you look at my thumbnail, you see all those hairs around the lock, right? That's the hair that grows away from the lock, okay? And so if that hair is growing away from the lock, then it's basically like there's no hair there, right, for the lock to take in. Because if it's doing this, but my head is the lock, then it doesn't matter that the hairs are there, they're not into the lock, right? Okay, and so when you don't do maintenance, you don't grab those hairs that are like that and put them back into the lock. And so with time, your locks continue to thin out, okay? So this is why it's so important to figure out whether or not you have hair that grows away from your locks. The biggest clue that you do is, as I said, if you haven't done maintenance and your locks are thinning out, because in that case, why else would they be thinning, right? Unless you're just going bald and it's, you know, genetics. But even when you have hair that grows away from your locks, remember the hair is still there, so you're not going bald, so it's not that, right? That's not even a possibility because that hair is present, okay? Once you figure out that you do have hair that grows away from your locks, make sure you do maintenance semi-frequently, even if you are a semi-freeformer, you know, and you'll have to figure out what sort of frequency works best for you, right? I'm not trying to convert you into a manicured locker. I'm a semi-freeformer, and yeah, I love this life, so I definitely want you to enjoy the semi-freeform lifestyle. But once your locks start to thin out, then you'll need to figure out for yourself how often you should do maintenance. For some people, it's every 6 months. For some people, it's every 4. I retwist, you know, usually once or twice a year. But I also use the braid technique, which I talk about in other videos as well. So yes, that is what having hair that grows away from your locks is, and it's important because if you do, then your locks can thin out, especially if you are a semi-freeformer, okay? People who have manicured locks and who get their locks done semi-regularly, or, you know, pretty regularly, pretty consistently, they don't really have to worry about their locks thinning out from having hair that grows away from their locks, because they're always reincorporating those new hairs back into the locks every two weeks, every, you know, month, every month and a half, every 2 months, whatever, what have you, right? So they don't, it's not really an issue or as big of an issue for them. They may be annoyed by the fact that they have a fro only after like a week's time, but it's not harming their locks the way having hair that grows away from your locks harms your locks, harms the locks of a semi-freeformer, because who knows when we're gonna do maintenance next, right? So you really have to keep an eye out on your locks. You have to pay attention to whether or not they are staying, you know, the same girth, the same thickness, and if they're not, consider that you might have hair that grows away from your locks and you need to figure out a game plan, okay? And let me just make clear in this video before I go that just because you have hair that grows away from your locks doesn't mean that every single one of your locks is gonna thin out. Like, out of all the locks that I have, and I have a lot of them, I only have like 5 problematic locks because I have hair that grows away from my locks. Meaning I only had, and it's even fewer now, but when I first discovered it, I only had like 5 locks that were thinning out as a result of having hair that grows away from my locks, okay? Now it's fewer because I use the braid technique and that hair is just behaving as it should. It took long enough, it's almost been 8 years. Anyway, so hopefully this video has been informative. Let me know in the comments if you have hair that grows away from your locks. And if you do, how often you actually do maintenance to keep your locks from thinning out. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, be sure to, in the comments, type cumulus, that's C-U-M-U-L-U-S, clouds, C-L-O-U-D-S. I'm looking outside and there's some big, beautiful, puffy, white cumulus clouds with some blue sky in the background, like The Simpsons. Actually, let's make this simpler. If you stay to the end, type in the comment section somewhere, The Simpsons. If you choose to love, do so unconditionally, because loving with conditions conditions the heart to not really love at all. This is Atreyu Locs, and I will see you next time. Peace.